Good morning, everyone. It's Tuesday, November 23rd. From the San Antonio Express-News, my name is Luis Vasquez, and this is your Express Briefing. All of the stories you need to know to start your day. You can expect mostly cloudy skies, showers, and a high of 81 degrees in San Antonio today. You're invited to join the Express-News Editorial Board this morning for a conversation with former Mayor Phil Hardberger about the Tobin Land Bridge over Wurzbach Parkway. The first of its kind in the nation, the land bridge is scheduled to open on December 11th. For Thanksgiving this year, the CDC recommends staying home and celebrating with the people you live with, or connecting virtually to people in other households. But if you choose to host or attend a gathering, there are ways to reduce the risks. And now let's move on to our top stories for the day. A patient who suffered permanent lung damage from COVID-19 is recovering after receiving a double lung transplant at University Hospital. The surgery was the first of its kind to be performed in San Antonio. Only a small number of the procedures have taken place in Texas. Over the past few months, a handful of critically ill coronavirus patients from San Antonio have undergone lung transplants, but their procedures had all been performed elsewhere. Transplants are considered a last resort for patients who were largely healthy before their illness but show no signs of recovering from their lung injury. Lauren Karuba has more in her latest article. On a recent day before the sun cast long shadows across the putting green, Frederick Preston offered helpful hints to several young golfers at the First Tee Greater San Antonio Center on East Mulberry Drive. For the past 15 years, the avid golfer has volunteered to teach children ages 5 to 18 about the sport and the paths ahead of them. The coaches teach 9 core values: honesty, integrity, sportsmanship, respect, confidence, responsibility, perseverance, courtesy, and judgment. Vincent T. Davis tells the story of the 78-year-old's path to San Antonio and his reason for coaching youngsters every week. In the run-up to Thanksgiving, San Antonians are traveling in the biggest numbers since the COVID-19 pandemic first hit 8 months ago, ignoring advice from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention to stay home. San Antonio International Airport saw 19,331 passengers pass through security checkpoints Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, according to the Transportation Security Administration. That was the largest 3-day total since March, when residents began hunkering down and the travel industry collapsed. Randy Diamond puts those numbers in perspective and explains why not every traveler passing through San Antonio's airport had Thanksgiving on the brain. Harlandale Independent School District trustees voted to settle a lawsuit with the district's former engineering contractor, agreeing to bury the bitter remains of a decade-long business relationship that became the central focus of a Texas education agency investigation. The TEA probe resulting in a scathing report about the district's procurement practices that placed much of the blame on board members and almost resulted in a state takeover of the district. You can read more about the history between Harlandale ISD and Jasmine Engineering in Krista Torava's latest story. San Antonio officials urged residents on Monday to avoid travel and all indoor activities with people outside of their households as transmissions of the coronavirus continue to worsen just days ahead of Thanksgiving. Officials reported 709 new cases Monday, bringing Bexar County's cumulative number of infections to 74,591. The new cases add to a recent spike in infections in San Antonio, which has logged more than 2,700 new infections since Friday. We're tracking the virus in San Antonio and the state with interactive charts over at expressnews.com. Next up are your need-to-know headlines. You can find all of these headlines and more inside of your Express News subscription. U.S. Senator John Cornyn is among 21 Republican senators who have privately expressed extreme contempt for President Donald Trump while publicly avoiding outright criticism of the president, according to veteran journalist Carl Bernstein. San Antonio Mayor Ron Nirenberg emerged from his 14-day quarantine after being exposed to a person diagnosed with COVID-19 with a holiday warning for residents. An El Paso artist was one of many who responded to U.S. Senator Ted Cruz's Thanksgiving tweet that some say is insensitive to the coronavirus crisis. CBS Sunday Morning visited the San Antonio Food Bank, where cars continue to light up for distribution, and give credit to the Express-News staff photographer William Luther for first raising awareness of the crisis. The city of San Antonio has issued more than 3,000 warnings and 294 citations for violating the emergency declarations, including 6 citations at one local strip club. We're compiling a list of the citations over at expressnews.com. Bexar County Judge Nelson Wolff and Mayor Ron Nirenberg on Monday announced their endorsement for Via Metropolitan Transit Board chairman. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled Monday that Texas can bring back its ban on Medicaid funding of Planned Parenthood. The decision by the full Fifth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in New Orleans reverses an earlier ruling by a 3-judge appellate panel. It didn't take long for Republicans in the Texas Senate to send a clear message to local governments that they should prepare for another high-stakes battle in Austin. The last 2 sessions have been aggressively anti-local government, so this is no surprise. An East Coast firm has snapped up its first hotel in San Antonio, the luxury Hotel Contessa on the Riverwalk downtown. The 265-room hotel was built in 2005. The oil and gas industry could see another half-dozen mergers and acquisitions by the middle of next year as companies consolidate to weather the economic fallout from the coronavirus pandemic. Former Secretary of State John Kerry will be named as Special Presidential Envoy for Climate by President-elect Joe Biden, according to his transition team. In a sign, Biden plans to fulfill promises to elevate the issue of global warming to the highest levels. The Express-News Editorial Board writes, quote, "If teens honored and followed abstinence-only education, Texas would not constantly have one of the highest teen pregnancy rates in the nation. And the same holds true in Bexar County. If teens are going to have sex, and many are, let's all do what we can to ensure it's safe and healthy." You can read the full editorial at expressnews.com. Sherry Kafka Wagner, a globe-trotting urban planner whose San Antonio projects include the library at Hotel Emma, grew up in rural Arkansas where reading materials in people's households rarely went beyond the Bible. But a copy of Black Beauty somehow popped up in her home when she was 3 or 4 years old, and she begged family members to read it to her over and over. She grew up wanting to be a writer, setting a goal for herself of publishing a novel before she turned 30. And she did. Hannah Jackson was released in 1966. It came out shortly after she moved to San Antonio to work on Hemisphere 68. The quietly powerful novel, which traces the life of a woman in a small Texas town entirely through the eyes of her family and community members, has been re-released. You can read more about the book and its author over at expressnews.com. With the right ingredients and technique, a full meal can be ready in about 15 minutes. We'll show you how to make seafood less intimidating in this week's Chuck's Food Shack. Mi Tierra is celebrating the restaurant's new Facebook friends by serving up deals on bean and cheese tacos, mini and jumbo margaritas, and cheese enchiladas today. Catch up on all the action from the past week in volleyball, football, and girls basketball. The boys basketball season is just getting started, while the cross-country season ended in a state championship for this local squad. The Texas A&M Aggies aren't letting the college football playoff rankings distract them from their first game in 3 weeks. The Texas Longhorns are also coming off 2 idle weekends for their upcoming game against Iowa State. And that's all for today. This was your Express Briefing for Tuesday, November 24th. My name is Luis Vasquez. Please consider becoming an Express News subscriber to get in-depth coverage on all the stories you heard today. Also, be sure to rate and review this podcast inside of your Apple Podcast app, as it really helps the show. Have a wonderful day, everyone.